GMAX Machamp is making its Pokemon Go debut during its own Max Battle Day, and for the first time you can remote raid Gigantamax Pokemon. These, however, are some of the most difficult battles in Pokemon Go, but by the end of this video, you'll know the best counters, tips, and strategies for taking this Pokemon down as easily as possible, and I'll also be pointing out some mistakes to avoid to help you save some time and effort. So the event takes place on May 25th between 2 PM and 5 PM local time, but what exactly does this event have to offer? Well, for the bonuses, GMAX Machamp will be appearing at all power spots, and it will cost 800 max particles to battle it. The max particle collection limit will increase to 1600, power spots will refresh more frequently, you'll get 8 times max particles from power spots, and you'll get 2 additional special trades for the day. All of these bonuses will be active for the 3 hours of the event. But there are some more bonuses that will be active from 12 AM till 5 PM local time on the day. During this time, you'll get 2 times max particles from walking, and it'll only require a quarter of the normal distance to get these max particles. For these 2 bonuses to apply though, you do need to make sure you've collected all max particles from the nearby menu. And these aren't even all of the bonuses you can get access to during this event, because you do have the option of purchasing a $5 ticket that'll get you a max mushroom, 25,000 XP, and you'll get the following bonuses: 2 times XP from max battles, and the max particle collection limit will be further increased to 5,600. This ticket will also be available on a Pokemon Go web store for the same price, but you'll get a bonus max particle pack as well, which is actually really useful because that max particle pack is enough to do another GMAX Machamp battle. So if you are looking to buy this ticket, I would definitely get it from the web store. And there is also another way of getting 800 free max particles that I will be going through later on toward the end of the video. And you will get a free timed research starting from May 19th at 6 PM local time that will get you an encounter with Max Beldum, some candy, and some max particles to help you take on GMAX Machamp. And there is actually a little bit of a mistake that you can do with this timed research, but more on that later. And while all of this is great, you won't be able to benefit much from these bonuses unless you know how to take this Pokemon down. And unless you live in an area with a very active Pokemon Go community, it can be tough to get the numbers to beat this Pokemon in person. But finally, from May 19th, Max and GMAX battles are remote raidable, meaning you can join them remotely using the normal amount of max particles it takes to join and a remote raid pass. Or you can invite people to a GMAX battle you host. This makes GMAX battles the most accessible they have ever been in Pokemon Go, and it means rural players at least have a chance of getting these Pokemon. So up to 10 trainers can be invited to join a GMAX battle, which of course is a really great addition to the game. But even with these extra 10 players, if you don't have many others in person, and if you aren't very well prepared for these battles and using the correct strategies, you might still not be able to beat it because these GMAX battles are pretty difficult. So what are the best strategies you can use to ensure victory against the Pokemon so you're not wasting resources on it? Well, there are a couple of really useful strategies you can use, but first you need to know about the roles, tanks, healers, and attackers, and what makes a Pokemon good in these roles. So briefly, a tank is a Pokemon that has high defenses and a typing that resists most of the attacks the Max Battle Boss can do, so overall it can take less damage. It can also be a Max Guard user, which gives it more health in the form of shields, and it can taunt the Max Battle Boss to attack it more than it attacks others in the party. This is generally very useful when working in a team, so you can take the heat off the attackers, which usually have stats more weighted in attack, so they are more frail and may be defeated more quickly if hit often. Good tanks also often have low animation fast attacks, moves like Water Gun and Bite for example, that have a 0.5 second animation time, allowing them to charge their max meter quicker than other moves do. This is particularly helpful for strategies when everyone is using attackers or when you are soloing, because you can use the tank to build the max meter fast, then during the Dynamax phase you can swap into your attacker and use its max attacks and then swap back into the tank and repeat. Now healers can be pretty similar to tanks because you want them to take less damage and resist attacks etc, but as they are going to be using Max Spirit to heal a 4-trainer party, you do want them to have a high stamina stat. This is because Max Spirit heals an amount that is a percentage of the user's HP, so the higher the Max Spirit user's HP, the bigger the heal will be. This is why Pokemon like Max Blissey are very good for this role, because it has a very high HP stat. And lastly, for attackers, you want Pokemon that has a type advantage over the Max Battle Boss, and you want as high damage as possible with strong super effective moves and a high attack stat. Their goal is to do as much damage as possible. And a quick bonus tip for further preparing against the GMAX Battle Boss is that they can actually do 2 types of attacks, which will be chosen from the Pokemon specific charge attack move pool. One attack is a large attack that hits all Pokemon, and this one can't be dodged, and the second attack is a direct attack on a specific Pokemon that can be dodged. You can do this by keeping an eye on the attack feed and the 3 lines that appear above your Pokemon. And if you encounter an attack combination that is tricky to deal with, you can always back out of the lobby and re-lobby to re-roll the moveset. This is particularly helpful if you have certain counters that work better against certain movesets. And later on I will be going through which attacks GMAX Machamp can do, which are best to avoid, and which tanks are better against which moves. Now back to the question of strategy. It's generally recommended for 6-star max battles, which you can do with up to 40 people, that you split your 4-player team into a tank focused trainer, a healing focused trainer, and 2 attack focused trainers. And while this can be strong, especially if you have good communication with your team, which could be lacking especially if you've got people joining remotely, this strategy is generally used when you don't have as many people and you've got good communication. Alternatively though, for bigger groups, you could have all players use tanks to start off with to fill up the max meter and then swap into attackers or healers during the Dynamax window. And whichever strategy is most useful for your specific situation, it does beg the question of what are the best counters for GMAX Machamp. So GMAX Machamp can be shiny from these battles, and the 100% IV you're looking for is 1746. It's a fighting type, therefore it is weak to flying, psychic and fairy type attacks, and it will use two of the following moves in battle: Cross Chop, Stone Edge, Submission, Rock Slide, Close Combat, Dynamic Punch, Heavy Slam and Payback. Now, a big mistake trainers can make is fighting against the wrong moveset. Out of these moves, I would try to avoid Close Combat, Stone Edge and Payback, because these are the highest damaging attacks that will most likely be able to one-shot your Pokemon. So if you do come up against these moves, I would recommend re-lobbying to try and re-roll the moveset. And also using the correct tank against the correct moveset is something that will really help out your raid team. And there are a few tanks that could be useful for this GMAX battle, but their usefulness does depend on the moveset of Machamp. Firstly, Max Blissey is the best tank for max battles generally, and if you can manage to go against a Machamp that doesn't have a fighting type moveset, Max Blissey is going to be the best tank for this. But it might still be able to take some hits from the lower damaging fighting attacks, but remember it does take super effective damage from these attacks. Another option could be GMAX or Max Venusaur, which will resist the fighting type attacks, so it's a pretty safe bet. Now another good option that's a little bit more risky is using GMAX Gengar or Max Gengar. This Pokemon doesn't have high defenses, but because of its typing, it does triple resist fighting type moves. So in the case of Machamp having a fighting type moveset, Gengar will be your best bet. Metagross is also a decent option as well because it can resist the rock and steel moves, but it is weak to Payback and it doesn't have a 0.5 second animation fast attack, meaning it will be slower getting to the max phase. Ideally, you would take two tanks, one Blissey and one GMAX or Max Gengar, because you can use the Blissey to scope out the move Machamp is using and then swap into Gengar if it happens to be fighting type attacks. And if you do decide to use a healer, then Max Blissey will be the best choice for this, but pretty much anything that is a good tank and has a high HP stat will be a good healer. For attackers, the best is going to be Max Metagross with Zen Headbutt for Max Mindstorm. You could alternatively use Max Moltres with Wing Attack for Max Airstream, Max Unpheasant with Air Slash for Max Airstream, or you could use Max Charizard with Air Slash for Max Airstream as well. Do note though, if you do choose Charizard, make sure you are using the Max version and not the GMAX version, because the GMAX version will always have GMAX Wildfire despite the fast attack, but the Max version can get access to Max Airstream if you're using Air Slash. And that leads us to the question of how many trainers are you most likely going to need for this battle? Well, it's hard to say for sure until the battles go live, but based on previous GMAX battles, I would imagine these raids will take around 10 plus people to do, but with good strategy and team composition, it could be doable with less. Worth noting as well, whilst expensive to purchase, Max Mushrooms do double your damage output, so it's a great item to use if you don't have a big group to do these battles with. And with Blissey, Gengar and Metagross being the best Pokemon to use against GMAX Machamp, you are generally going to need a lot of candy to power them up and their max moves, so it's well worth leaving multiple of them at different power spots often to try and gain some passive candy before this event. But if you can't manage to get as much candy as you need to level up the Pokemon and their max moves, there is a certain way you can use the candy you've got to make sure you get the most out of your resources, because it can be tricky deciding whether to power up the Pokemon or the max moves first. So the best order of importance is to fully evolve the Pokemon first if you can, then power up to level 30, because after this the amount of resources to level up the Pokemon becomes a lot more steep and a lot less worth it. Once at level 30 you can then begin powering up your max moves, and after that you should power up to level 40 or 50. Doing it this way will get the most out of the resources you have. But how can you even tell your Pokemon's at level 30? Well, the best way to tell is the Stardust cost for powering up. If you get to the point where the next Stardust cost requires 5,000 Stardust, that is level 29. So if you power up 2 more times, it'll reach level 30. Then you can focus on your max moves. Worth noting as well, you can recuperate a lot of this Stardust that you use for powering up through the GMAX Machamp raids themselves. So if you can do a few of these GMAX battles, I would recommend having a star piece active while you do them, because they do give 25,000 Stardust per battle, which will be 37.5k with a star piece. And if you have the coins, you could also spend 200 coins to double up your rewards to get 75,000 Stardust per GMAX battle. So if you are able to get a group of people and do a load of these GMAX battles, or if you're able to remote raid them, then you could really rack up some Stardust from these. However, if you can only do one of these GMAX battles, then a star piece probably isn't worth it. But besides the Stardust gain, are these GMAX Machamp battles even worth doing? Well, for max battles, GMAX Machamp will be the best fighting type attacker, and it is the only fighting type GMAX Pokemon that has a fighting type GMAX move, so it will pretty much be the best for now and the future, unless new GMAX Pokemon are ever made for the main series games and brought to Pokemon Go. And outside of max battles, Machamp is the 21st best fighting type attacker and the 9th best in its shadow form. And in the Great League, Machamp is ranked 100 and it's ranked 63 as a shadow with 0, 14, 11 IVs. In the Ultra League, it's ranked 119 and it's ranked 61 as a shadow with 0, 15, 14. And finally, in the Master League, it's ranked 154 and 101 as a shadow. And it is pretty strong in the Master League Premier as well. And if you're looking to get more candy from Machamp from these battles, it's always worth using a Pinat Berry when catching it, and you can Mega Evolve a fighting type Pokemon to increase the amount of Candy XL, and XP you get per Machamp catch. For this, you could Mega Evolve Heracross, Blaziken, Medicham, Lopunny, Lucario, or Gallade. But honestly, the best way to get more Machop Candy and Candy XL is to play the Machop Community Day Classic, which takes place the day before the GMAX Machamp Battle Day on the 24th between 2 PM and 5 PM local time. With only Machop spawning during this time, and from all of the learn modules people tend to put down on Community Day, you could easily get enough candy to max out a GMAX Machamp and unlock and power up its max attack. And I do have a video up on the channel now which goes through how you can maximize Machop Community Day Classic, so definitely worth checking that out if you want to know more. And you are going to want to power up the best GMAX Machamp you can get, and you will most likely only have a few opportunities to get good IVs during GMAX Battle Day because of the limited amount of battles you can do in a day. But exactly how many of these battles can you realistically do on this day with it costing 800 max particles to join them? Well, it is a little bit tricky, but you will be able to do quite a few of these battles if you manage your max particles in a certain way. Firstly, the amount of max particles you can carry has been increased to 1500 instead of 1000 with the remote max battle implementation, but you can still only collect 800 max particles per day. So it will take a few days prep, but if you can collect just under 1500, around 1480 for example, over a couple of days, and then claim 300 from walking, you'll be able to get close to 1800. Then on the GMAX Machamp Max Battle Day, the collection limit will increase to 1600, but you can collect 2240 by collecting max particles from a new power spot giving you 820 particles, then claim 600 from walking, and then collect another 820 from a different power spot. This will give you 2240 for the day. And like I mentioned with the free timed research before, there is a little bit of a mistake you can do, and that is using the max particles before this day, because if you save them, that's another 1400 max particles you can collect on the day. So you will have 1780 from the previous day, plus 2240 from the GMAX Battle Day, and 1400 from the research, so you will have a total of 5420 to use, which is enough for 6 GMAX Machamp battles with 620 left over. However, you can get some extra rewards, including max particles, by joining a community ambassador meetup. To do this, you need to head to the Niantic Campfire app and check your local area on the map to see if there is a meetup being held specifically by a community ambassador. Then if you go to the meetup, you can check in via the Campfire app and you will receive a special research. These special researches do differ depending on the type of event you're meeting up for, and for a max battle day in particular, you'll get 5000 XP for winning 2 max battles, 5 Great Balls for catching a max Pokemon, 2000 Stardust from powering up a Pokemon 10 times, and for completing all of these tasks, you'll get 800 max particles, which you can then use to do a 7th GMAX Machamp battle. And if you do want to know more about other events that are going on around the same time as this GMAX Machamp Battle Day, then I recommend checking out one of these videos on the screen now, and I'll catch you in the next one.